double burst had already gone out before I understood what Comms Officer Teth had actually done. I remember the sound of it, a specific harmonic, two tones overlapping, the kind of transmission profile you use when one channel is blocked and you need redundancy fast. The Seth passage was doing what the Seth passage always does to courier traffic, eating our primary band in electromagnetic interference from the debris field and the gas giant's radiation belt. Teth had jury-rigged the burst across two nodes simultaneously. Standard emergency improvisation. He'd aimed it at the Vethani sector relay, 40 light minutes spinward, and assumed it would bounce normally to the Defense Directorate. He had not read the fine print on the second node. Neither had I. Neither, as far as I can determine, had anyone in the Vethani courier service for the better part of 400 years. The Cerathi raiders had come out of the debris field on our port quarter while we were running silent, coasting on minimum power to avoid the interference bloom. Our point defense array had managed one partial intercept before the second volley took out our drive coupling and left us rotating slowly in the dark. 3 crew, 1 functioning weapon, enough power for passive sensors and the comms rig, and not much else. The raider was holding position 2,000 kilometers off, waiting, the way they do when they know you're crippled and they're in no hurry. Teth sent the double burst at 3:14 ship time. I told him it was a reasonable decision and turned back to the passive scan, watching the raider's heat signature pulse in the amber backlight of the gas giant. The giant is called Vrethis on our charts. It fills a third of the forward viewport when you're this deep in the passage, all banded orange and rust, and the light it casts is warm and wrong for a place where people are trying to kill you. We waited. At 0341, the passive scan registered a new contact. Jump emergence. That took me out of my seat. The contact was large, very large. I pulled the returns manually because I didn't trust the automated classification. The profile was outside every parameter the system knew how to. It was not a Vethani hull. It was not a Cerathi hull. It was not, as far as our archive could determine, any hull in the catalog. Length returns placed it at 1,100 meters. Vethani courier ships run 240 meters. Cerathi raiders run between 60 and 90. Whatever had just arrived in the Seth passage was not built to the same scale as anything else in this space. The raider's heat signature spiked. Then it began to move, not toward us, away. Hard burn, deb field be damned. I watched that for a long moment. Then the new contact hailed us. The hail came in on a frequency I had never heard used in my career. Teth pulled up the protocol identifier and stared at it, then looked at me, then looked back at his board. The identifier resolved to something called the Interstellar Survey Consortium, Mutual Aid Emergency Channel, and the encoding was 340 years old. Teth had to route the signal through the archive's legacy translation layer. The archive had to retrieve the legacy translation layer from cold storage because nothing had used it in living memory. The voice that came through was human, unhurried, a low register, careful consonants, the kind of voice that has delivered a great many messages in a great many situations and found the same cadence useful for all of them. Pre's vessel in the Seath Passage. This is ISV Revenant responding to Consortium Mutual Aid request. Burst received at 0318. Please confirm crew status and nature of the emergency. I told Teth to transmit. I said, ISV Revenant, this is Courier Atash Orenthale, Vethani Diplomatic Service. We have 3 crew, 1 wounded, drive coupling destroyed. We had a hostile contact. It appears to have withdrawn. There was a pause. 4 seconds. Then the Interstellar Survey Consortium, established year 2089 by charter, is a founding member. Your double burst triggered our relay node on the old consortium emergency band. The relay is automated. It forwarded your request to us as the nearest member asset. We were 4 light hours out. Another pause, shorter. We'll come alongside. Stand by for docking approach. I sat with that for a moment. The Revenant came about. Even at range, through the passive scan, it moved the way large things move when they are very sure of themselves. Completely, without hesitation. As if the geometry of the debris field were a suggestion it had already considered and set aside. It closed the distance in 40 minutes. It did not ask permission to enter the debris field. It simply entered. When it came into visual range on the forward viewport, Framed by Vrethis and the slow tumble of the debris, I understood why the raider had run. It was not a warship in the way I would have described a warship before that morning. It was not sleek. It had been repaired many times, and the repairs were visible. Mismatched plating along the starboard quarter, different alloy on the forward sensor array than on the hull around it, scorch marks that had been cleaned but not erased. It was a vessel that had been useful for a very long time and showed every year of it. But the scale of it in that amber light was a specific kind of information. You do not need to know what a thing is capable of to understand that it is capable of a great deal. You only need to see it clearly. Their engineer was aboard my ship for 31 minutes. She fixed our drive, coupling with components she had pulled from a utility locker that was apparently large enough to stock a small repair yard. She said 11 words to me during that time. You'll want to run a diagnostic on the secondary bus before you make transit. She meant it as practical advice. I took it as practical advice. That was the entire conversation. The Revenant's captain sent a data packet before they departed. It contained a formal after-action summary in Consortium protocol format, a routing confirmation showing which relay node had received the double burst and forwarded it, and a query: did we require escort to the nearest Vethani way station, and if so, what was our preferred transit heading? I sent back, no escort required, and thank you. The response was 2 words, acknowledged. They used my name, not my title, not the ship's designation, my name. I don't know whether that was deliberate or simply the way they organize information, and I decided not to spend time determining which. The Revenant made its jump at 0521. The debris field closed behind it. The Vrethis light kept coming through the viewport, orange and rust, the same as before. I filed my report when we reached the way station. I included a formal inquiry to the Consortium relay record because I needed to understand what had happened before I could describe it accurately. And because I am, at the end of everything, a diplomat. Diplomats do not submit incomplete paperwork. The relay office took 11 days to respond. The response was a 6-page document, dense with administrative notations and archive references, and it confirmed the following. The Interstellar Survey Consortium had been established 340 years ago. Earth had been a founding member. The consortium had dissolved 295 years ago when the majority of member states ceased operations and formally decommissioned their relay nodes. Earth had not submitted formal decommission paperwork. Earth's relay node had therefore remained on the active roster in perpetuity, its dues account in arrears, but its listening status technically valid, because no one had told it to stop listening. There was a footnote. It noted that Earth's relay node had logged 0 activations in the preceding 295 years, until ours. I added the document to the report and sent it to my supervisors at the Diplomatic Directorate. I do not know what they did with it. Probably they filed it. Probably it sits in a records archive somewhere in the capital, correctly categorized, correctly cross-referenced, and very rarely read. I've thought about Teth's double burst a number of times since then. About what it means that the second node was there at all. About what it means that no one had turned it off. About the specific quality of a civilization that joins a consortium, watches the consortium dissolve around it, and simply never gets around to submitting the decommission form. Not out of negligence, I think. Out of something more like indifference to paperwork as a reason to stop being available. The Cerathi raider, I learned later, was recovered by a Vethani patrol 4 days after the incident. It had suffered drive damage from its transit through the debris field. Its crew attributed their flight to the appearance of a vessel they could not identify and did not wish to engage. They described it as very large. They had no other information to offer. The node is still active as far as I know. I checked the consortium registry again last month. Status remains. Member in good standing, relay operational, dues in arrears. I did not report that as a problem.